Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome to the next session. This is about your major assignment 4, part 2. So, as you're already done with the raw data, which was the first part of your major assignment 4, now is the time to actually analyze that data. Either it's qualitative or quantitative. I have recorded both videos for you guys. For the quantitative students, I've done it on the SPSS, and for the qualitative students, I've done it on thematic analysis. So you can all read it, listen to that, watch it, and it will definitely help you in doing your second part of your fourth major assignment. So this session is basically about what you're supposed to do exactly in this part of your major assignment 4. So the guideline has already been comprehensively explained. What I'm going to do is to actually explain each point in a hope that it will clarify your path into doing your final project completed, because this is the last step. So this assignment number 4, part 2 is basically based on two chapters. As you already know, this is about data analysis chapter, and then we have the conclusion and recommendation chapter. This whole point of analysis chapter and conclusion chapter have been explained in terms of both qualitative and quantitative researches. But I've also separated the guideline for both qualitative and quantitative, which I'm going to share with you guys. So then you will clearly understand what points exactly relate to you if you study as suppose qualitative or if you study as suppose quantitative. So let's begin. The first chapter is the analysis chapter. This is called the analysis and findings. So in this chapter, you basically practically analyze your data and then you discuss the findings. So the page limit, as you can see, is 10 to 15 pages. Like I also told you in the class that these number of pages is not something to be freaked out, because most of the analysis chapter is usually based on tables. Even in case of qualitative students, if you have watched the thematic analysis video, you will understand that even in your case, you do have some kind of figures or any kind of tables that you can develop on based on your own data analysis. So this page limit has to be strictly followed. Then we have analysis, or analyzing data in the light of your research project objectives and questions. So I have created this justify the analysis you applied by providing references. If you read the statement, it basically refers to something that you have already done in your third major assignment. Remember, I told you in your third major assignment there was a heading by the name of data analysis procedure. So you have already defined what kind of analysis you're going to apply on your raw data, and you have also discussed the justification already. So if suppose your study is qualitative, you did mention in your third major assignment that it's going to be thematic analysis. And what is thematic analysis? You have described it already along with justification. So all you have to do is just in one paragraph or so you can repeat that same process. So basically, it means that if you study as suppose quantitative, so what are you going to apply in order to achieve your research questions and objectives? So if your study discusses the cause and effect relationship, so as a matter of fact, you may have already discussed it in your third major assignment that you're going to use regression analysis, which is done on SPSS, which is the statistical package for social sciences. It is used for statistical data analysis of quantitative material. So this justification is already done in third major assignment. All you have to do is to just repeat it in your fourth major assignment. Analysis chapter. Then we have use of technologies like Excel, SPSS, etc. is necessary. Now, this is for both qualitative and quantitative research. Why? Because let me explain first. For quantitative students, you do understand that all your data has been stored in Excel, and then later on you used the SPSS software in order to analyze that. So those data file, those Excel file, and everything, you have to mention it in your analysis chapter that what kind of softwares have been used in order to analyze and store your data. So then you have to explain that. For qualitative students, if you're wondering how is it relevant to you, This is particularly for the demographic part of your study. So, in the demographic part, if you are asking about gender of your respondents or age of them, so of course you are, saving those um, or storing that kind of data in either Excel or SPSS to run the descriptive analysis. Now that's optional. If you want to do it, well and good. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But those of you who are running descriptive analysis on the demographic variable of your respondents, then go ahead and also discuss that for the demographic or descriptive part of your research, Excel and SPSS have been used in order to store and then analyze the data. Then we have if your research design involves regression analysis, make sure you develop your statistical regression model. Now this is specifically for quantitative students, and under no circumstances this could be applied on qualitative research. So when I will share the separate guideline for both qualitative and quantitative students, you will then realize that this part has been removed from the qualitative students, and then there's no need for you guys to add this particular part in your study. However, for the quantitative students, if you're using regression analysis, so this is the statistical model of your research questions and objectives. So this basically represents the y is the dependent variable. So instead of writing dependent variable, or instead of writing y, you have to write the name of the dependent variable. Then we have the constant. If you look into the coefficient table of your regression model or your regression analysis, you will understand that before you move towards the individual results or individual significance value of your independent variables, there is another value given as constant. So this beta naught represents that constant value. Then we have beta itself. So beta is the coefficient of x, and x represents independent variable. So how much change in the y is due to the change in the x. So this is what it represents. Then we have x. X is the independent variable. So instead of writing x, you can simply write down the name of your independent variables. Then this one is the error term. So in your case, because you have a 95% confidence interval, so this error term would be 0.05. So then you can also write it as it is, because you already have mentioned that you have 95% confidence interval. So as a matter of fact, your error term will definitely be 5%. Or you can write it also, there's no issue in that. So everything is self-explanatory. All you have to do is just incorporate the name of your variables, and that's it. There's nothing else you have to do for this part. Okay. Then we have interpret your study findings by clearly linking them with themes you identified from literature. Now go back to the qualitative data analysis method that I have recorded. There you will understand that this is the fifth step, in which I told you that you have to discuss your results by linking them with the previous work. So whatever study findings of the study that you do have, you can actually link it with the previous work, and that's how you can support your argument and show how much other people's work is in relevance with your own study. Now, this is also as a I would say as a complementary table for the same purpose. So this is also for qualitative and quantitative students. So for the qualitative people, like I told you, just like you did in the discussion part, so this is basically the shorter form of what you have done in the discussion. So instead of doing or copy pasting the whole discussion part, you can just write down the name. For example, let's say security is one of the challenges for women entrepreneurs. So just write down security challenges, and then whoever had similar idea as yours, just give the reference of that person. So this is, like I told you, if you have done this part, then doing this part of your study is not a big deal, because then you just have to list down the name of the people who are in support of your study. So for the qualitative students, this will be very unlikely that you will have some kind of contradictory literature in your case. So if you leave this a column empty, that's fine. You can also just delete it, doesn't matter. But for quantitative students, now see, this result is basically showing, see, when you're talking about positive relation, things like that, so it's basically representing quantitative research. So for you guys, you have to write down the whatever hypothesis that has been accepted. So I told you that you basically test the null hypothesis, right? So if the null hypothesis is rejected, so type the alternative hypothesis in this column. But if there is the null hypothesis has been accepted, so type your null hypothesis in this column. So for you guys, this would be easy to find out some contradictory um, literature. Somebody else has had some kind of different analysis which is complete opposite of yours, so place that name of that person in the contradictory literature. This means that in your case there was a positive relationship between employee satisfaction and organizational performance, but according to Frederick's study, there was a negative correlation, or there was no correlation. And this one represents that the same result that you got, which was a positive relation between employee satisfaction and organizational performance, was the same as John and Carol, who found out similar results in their study. Now, depending on whatever number of studies you have, you will keep incorporating those number of rows in this particular table. Now, some of you may be confused. What does it mean? So when you say that source authors, this author basically you don't have to change it, by the way. Just keep it as it is. This authors represent that it's you who did this table. It's you who made this table. So you're basically giving yourself the credit. So then there's no need to write your names. The fact that you have written authors will immediately and automatically refer to you guys. Okay, then I have this data collection file of SPSS. For those of you who have done quantitative research, you must and you should send me the SPSS file and also the Excel file through email, but that's not going to be the part of your final project. It's not like you're going to include the Excel table, etc. in the final project. This will be email to me, as I've already told you in the first part of your major assignment, major assignment 4. This is the raw data, so you have to send me the raw file as well. Same goes for the qualitative students. You have to send me the Word file, which you have already done, most of you, so in which you have written the responses of your respondents. That's like the evidence of your study. Now here, this appendix or annexure basically represents whatever that has been used in your study, but then you have not mentioned it within the chapters, but that is also part of important part, so you basically include it at the very last page of your final project. What is the questionnaire, what is the appendix or annexure in your case? For the qualitative students, that would be the interview questions, and for quantitative students, that would be the questionnaire. So you have to place your questionnaire or interview questions within or under this heading at the last page of your final project. Then we have start your chapter with an introduction and conclusion. This is not very technical, it's just an introduction and conclusion to the chapter. So, just like you did in the literature review, when you started your chapter with an introduction, which was barely like 4 lines or 5 lines, do it the same with the analysis chapter as well. So then you have to place an introduction within your chapter and then a conclusion at the end of your chapter. This basically shows the overall, in the introduction part, basically you're telling your readers what they should expect to read in the literature, in the data analysis. And then in the conclusion part, you basically conclude whatever research findings that you achieved within this chapter, and that's it. So hardly there should be 4 to 5 lines. You don't have to be worried about this part. Okay, then we have the next chapter. Okay, by the way, before I move forward to the next chapter, let me tell you that whatever presentations that I'm going to announce will be about the analysis chapter. So if you have done the analysis chapter, just present that chapter only. Once you're done with the presentation, then move towards writing your conclusion chapter. Now, as you can see, the conclusion chapter is 4 to 6 pages. I would say there is a requirement for minimum page that is exactly 4 pages. It should not be less than 4 pages. But if you would like to write more than 6 pages, then go ahead. There's no restriction. You can write as much as you want, but it should not be less than 4 pages. So research conclusion here, uh, if you look into this part, I basically ask you to conclude each chapter. So now this conclusion is basically the conclusion of your entire final project. So starting from what you wanted to study, what were your research questions, objectives, how many research papers did you read, what was the research methodology, how much was the sample size, what was the analysis procedure, etc., and what was the result or findings of your study. So just discuss all of them in this particular heading. So each of these, if you see, each of them are representing one heading. Then we have research implication. Firstly, let me tell you that research implication and recommendation are the same. The only difference is that in the research implication, we are basically giving long-term suggestions. For example, you give suggestions like researchers can study same topic by including more number of respondents to increase generalizability of the responses on the rest of the population. So suppose this is one of the overall implication for the study. But then for the recommendation, you can also skip this part. This is optional. See, I have written optional. So if you think that you do not have any sort of long-term implications for the study, just ignore this part. But there is no option for you guys in the recommendation part. Recommendation of a study basically refers to the short term suggestions. So because all the studies have or based on some kind of applied research and there was some kind of problem which needed solution, so then you have to provide the solution over here. Please notice that in the entire final, conclusion chapter, I have not asked you to justify anything or to provide references. Here in the conclusion chapter, you need to use your own creativity and your own opinions in order to, provide some kind of information. So particularly in case of recommendation, be very, very realistic. Consider yourself somebody who is responsible for this particular situation, and then how can you come out of that situation. So suppose if there's problem in the system of an organization, and this is what you found out in your study, so then now that it has been proved that there is some kind of problem in the system, so then what do you realistically and suggest at how to solve that kind of problem. So that should be an immediate and a short term recommendation which would solve that particular issue. So e optional is this has to be there in every research study because all of you have done applied research, so focus more on the recommendation part of your fifth chapter. Then we have limitation. So limitation of the study here represents the overall limitation that you have been or you have faced from the start of your semester till the end, and what could have been done that could make your study much better, but then you could not do it either because of some time issues, or maybe Afghanistan has sadly we have electricity problems, etc. So you can also share those concerns in the limitation part. So if some of you are wondering that this is also repeated in the research methodology, let me tell you that in the research methodology that was specifically in case of your research design, but here we are talking about your overall project. So even if some of the points of the limitation from the third major assignment are being repeated, then it's fine, there's no issue. Okay, so start your chapter with a conclusion and recommendation. I'm starting to believe that this is I think not necessary, so you can just cancel out this particular uh, bullet point and just end your chapter over here. Okay, now once you're done with these two chapters, then compile your study based on the format template for the research project. This format template is developed by Cornell University. We are seeking you guys to follow that strictly before you come for the defense and also before you submit it officially. So you have to refer to that template. So you have to compile all your 4 assignments, which means that your chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they all have to be combined together. So these are some of the important points that I need from you guys. This is also mentioned in the template, so do not get worried. Just for understanding that what has to be included in your study. So title page, of course, the name of your research project, or title of your research project, name of your group members, etc. Everything is mentioned in the template. Then we have declaration of authorship, where you are actually saying that this is done for the final project for completion of your degree. So yes, it's already given. All you have to do it, just put your names out there. Then acknowledgement basically means who are you thankful to. So some people write thank you notes for their parents, or suppose to Almighty, or maybe their supervisors. There's no limitation in case of acknowledgement. It is also optional if you don't feel like writing any thanks or thanking notes, then you just skip this acknowledgement part. It's not compulsory. Then we have executive summary. So in the executive summary, some people also call it abstract, but then executive summary is slightly longer than abstract. So in the executive summary, start your summary by just talking slightly about what the study is about, what is the whole process. So this is also similar to what we have done in the conclusion part. So once you're done with the conclusion chapter, you can easily write your executive summary. So this is very easy. You have to talk about the introduction of your study, your research question and objectives, also what was the sampling method, the overall research design, what was the analysis research findings. Some people also discuss the recommendation part in the executive summary. It's also fine, but then if you don't want to discuss the recommendations and the executive summary, that's also fine. Just discuss your results and that's it. So table of contents, yes, so of course another video may be coming for the table of contents, so don't worry about it. So list of tables and figures, there is option of if any. So for quantitative students, there definitely will be a lot of tables, a lot of figures, and but qualitative people, if you read I mean if you watch the video for qualitative data analysis, you will also realize that even in your case you can have some sort of tables or figures. But then if you don't want to incorporate, that's also up to you. Then we have chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So once you're done with all these chapters, then mention the references. I have already recorded a video for references. I'm going to share the link with you guys. So then you can develop list of references after chapter 5 of your study. Then we have appendix or annexure. Now this I explained in the above as well, that in the annexure or appendix part, for quantitative students, mention your questionnaire, and for qualitative students, mention your your interview questions. For those of you who are running analysis on secondary data, so then you do not need any appendix or any annexures. You can skip this part. But for others who are using questionnaire and interviews, you have to mention your questionnaire and interview questions under this heading. So the presentation, again, I will repeat, the presentation part will be on the analysis chapter only. Once you're done with your presentation, you can start working on your conclusion. So even if you work on conclusion, then still it's fine, but the presentation will specifically be about your chapter 4. The deadline is 6th of February. Remember that the deadline is for all of them. So it's not like just presentation or just chapter 4 or 5. This is for this entire part 2 of your major assignment 4. So the 6th February will be last date, and please follow this deadline strictly, because then even I need time to read your final projects before your defense. So if you do delay in the submission, then of course you will suffer. So the suffering is not worth it. So try to be on time. Or some of you who think that they can do it before 6th of February, go ahead, do it for before that, so that I can get time to read it. So by the way, this deadline is for the Thursday morning and Thursday evening students. For Saturday evening, for you guys, you already know the deadline, so please do not extend the deadline. Your deadline is quite different, so make sure you follow that particular deadline. Okay, so that's it. I hope it's clear for you. I'm going to send, like I promised, the individual qualitative and quantitative guidelines for the major assignment 4 part 2. So hopefully that will create more clarity for you guys to do the final project. So that's it. Good luck everyone, and Allah Hafiz.